Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo.
On this episode of the History of the Cores podcast with Curtis and Josh, we take a look at the band known as the one, the only, Zayo. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurvivedByPro for news and the latest episode postings. Make sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review. Write us a comment on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're using. Make sure to check us out on TikTok and give us a follow at IsSurvivedByProductions. If you'd like to see us do some live streams, leave us a comment or tweet us the keyword stream. Without further ado, let's start the show.
The devil is in Atlanta. Army surrounded.
Your eyes search for me. For so long, I've wanted to come home, held back by lies of serpents, tongues of brothers, turning a child into an enemy, turning open arms into closed fists. Welcome back to the History of the Cores podcast, sponsored by the Church of the Seventh Track, where each and every episode we take a look at the history of a band from the core genres. I'm Josh, and with me as always is Curtis. Curtis, how's it going, man?
I really thought for a second that you're going to go, I'm Curtis, and with me as always is Josh. Hey, I'm Josh. What's up?
What up?
Freaky Friday, man. We switched bodies.
No, I did remember to switch the names in there.
Nice. What's up, man?
What's going on?
Oh, not much, man. Not much. Just feel a little nostalgic this last week, man, listening to this band. The one, the only Zayo.
Yes.
Zayo. Yes. So good.
Curtis,
So good. And I've watched probably like half of the 3 hours worth of Lesser Lights of Heaven.
oh,
And that
dear
makes
God.
it even better, man.
It's
it
a
makes
long
it so
one.
much better.
It's a long
It's a
one.
long one. It's a long one, but it's well worth it. And it goes by in a hurry. You don't even notice.
When are we wanting to talk about Lesser Lights of Heaven? I haven't gotten a chance to rewatch the whole thing yet.
Yeah, I think it'll end up being when we get to Funeral of God, because that's when it came out.
Okay.
So if that's what you feel like is a good spot, I just assume we probably talk about it then. We may hit some like little things here and there. I think I have a few things in my notes that kind of reference to that, some of the interviews and such. With some of the things some of the band members said throughout the documentary, but more or less, I feel like it'll probably be hit on more towards the Funeral of God album, just because it came out at that time. So yeah, Zayo, man.
Curtis, I got to start by asking you something.
Ask away, buddy. Ask away.
So
I'm an open book. Sometimes.
I gotta go back to a After Hours episode.
Uh-oh.
Where this originally sparked this whole impending doom debate. Okay.
Okay.
And I remember one of your biggest things being that you felt like it was almost black metal-y, which kind of negated the fact
I think I said
that
more
they
like
were...
death metal, though.
Okay. Which
I think it was death metal, yeah.
Which you said you felt like kind of negated the fact that they were a Christian band. Is that correct?
I didn't like disown it or anything like that.
You said those words. Is that correct?
It just felt weird to sit there and be like, this feels like death metal, but it's like Christian death metal. It's like, how do those two things go together?
Do you have that
all I can think of
feeling?
I'm not gonna say it, but all I could think of when I was doing that was freaking Mac talking. It's just yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you have that same feeling about Zayo? Because I would argue that in a different way, His vocals, Dan's vocals are
Oh,
just as demonic
gnarly.
sounding, if you want to call
Gnarly.
it that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't
What
know.
say you, sir?
Did I ever say? I never said that I hated Impending Doom, though,
You didn't say
right?
you hated him.
I just said it was just, it's always been kind of a thing to me where when you get as heavy and kind of like gnarly in the vocals like that, it is always kind of like, it's just, these two things just don't feel like they mix, so they just don't seem like they would mix. But I mean, I'm kind of down for it. I'm kind of down for it. And
Do
it's
you go
it's
on the record
interesting.
right now saying that you prefer Hawk Nelson to
Oof.
Impending Doom?
Slow your roll there, buddy. Slow your roll. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in Zayo's like instance of like their like Christian background and everything, and like the themes in their music, and I noticed it throughout, Lesser Lights of Heaven. We're gonna say it over and over and over. If do yourself a favor, people, and go watch that documentary. It's on YouTube.
Oh, it's great.
It's over 3 hours long, but it's worth it because it's the story told by the band members themselves. And when I say band members, I mean all 20 million of them. And that's no lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see their change as, they grow older, and you start out with this group of, we're very hardcore Christian. We're up on the stage and we're preaching about Jesus, and we're, give your heart to Jesus and everything.
There
and
is
then
no
it's slowly
subtlety in those
no,
first
there
few
was
albums.
no, there's
none,
not.
no nuance.
And then you get to the point where you get to, I think they said, I just saw it today. They were talking about the turning point. I think Dan said the turning point for him on kind of not really getting away from Christianity, but just like his opinion was, some things were starting to change for him, was when they got to the Training for Utopia Zayo split. So you got Skin Like Winter and Walk On By, Walk On Me. And he talked about the Walk On By, Walk On Me was more about the hatred that he felt from the church in terms of the music that he played, the way he looked, the way he dressed, the way, he talked and everything like that. He just felt like there was a lot of pushback from these people that called themselves Christians when they were just as judgmental as anybody else,
Yeah.
And so he felt like he was just kind of getting pushed away from that. So it's very interesting to watch, throughout their albums. It kind of change from just a straight out, Jesus, man, we love you, Jesus, to more. I mean, even
we
on
heard
like,
you kids like heavy metal, so this is Zayo.
Yeah. So, and you kind of get to like on some of the songs on Where Blood, what's it called? Where Blood and
Fire bring rest.
There you go. Yeah. All I could have in my head was Lies of Serpents on. So,
Lies of the Serpent, River of Tears.
Exactly. And you read it right there in the lyrics of that one, dude. Held back by lies of serpents and tongues of brothers. I mean, the judgment of the brothers, and you're turning a child into an enemy. You're turning open arms into closed fists. And it's just like, there's a lot of hints on that album where he talks about, problems with the church and just a bunch of different stuff like that. So you start to see some like more kind of away from just the central idea again of just like, Jesus this and Jesus that. It's more of, I see this and I see that within, Christianity and the church and everything like that. But I love Zayo, man. I love Zayo so much. And this is really good. I was telling Eric today, I said, that was a band. When I was listening to it again this week, it really took me back to high school. Because that's when we were really big into them, or at least I was. And they were, once I kind of got into college and a little bit later on, I still listened to them, but I didn't really dive. I didn't really know as much as I had back in high school, and I kind of got away from them, like historically and like who they were and what they did, and yada yada yada. And of course, then they went on hiatus, pretty quickly after, what was it? Fear is what keeps us here, and Awake. And then we didn't hear from them again until Xenophobia in 2016, 17 era. And so, and I haven't even listened to those ones yet. I think I've heard like a few songs here and there, but never really got to sit down and really listen to them. And so, like I said, going back this week and listening to those first three full length albums of their discography is really, really kicked it back into gear and really got me back into them. And like I said, bringing back the nostalgia for me. So, but let's not dive too deep into Zayo just yet, Josh. I mean, we got 4 episodes worth to talk about, so we got plenty of time, buddy. But as tradition on this podcast, we're going to give you what we listened to this week, besides the band that we're going to talk about. So, Josh, would you like to start us off? What did you listen to this week?
Well, I will show you here.
What did you listen to this week? Ooh.
Okay.
There's a theme. There's a theme there. I can't put my thumb on it, but there's a theme there.
I really only listened to Set Your Goals this week. I just didn't listen to a ton of music this week other than Zayo, so
yeah. That's how I was too,
I did
I
listen
more
to
developing.
Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest like 3 or 4 times.
Right. Yeah. That's the one that I listen to probably the most out of all of them.
Yeah.
That and the Training for Utopia split, that's a really good one. But anyway.
Yeah, I do like that one. I want to go on the record and say the first couple of demo sessions, they're dog shit. They're dog shit.
I know. Yeah, we'll talk about them because there's some things to say about that for sure.
But I got all Set Your Goals. We got Mutiny. This will be the Death of Us and Burning at Both Ends.
Are they still a band?
I don't think so.
I didn't think they were.
We're like 6 of them, so I got to imagine they're out there doing other things.
2 lead vocalists. Pretty bold, man.
But it works.
Apart, that's for sure. For sure, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It sets you apart for sure. So
I mean, it comes back around. Like We Came as Romans did it.
True.
What was the other one? Skylit Drive.
Did they do 2? They did 2 vocalists?
Mm-hmm.
Just they only did vocals. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Maybe not. I thought so.
I mean, because plenty of bands have the lead vocalist and then a guitarist and vocalist.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Those are a dime a dozen anymore.
Yeah.
It's like your default.
Do you remember Mutiny? Do you remember the song Mutiny? There's a music video for it.
I don't think I've heard anything off of that album because I don't recognize that album. Yeah.
Okay.
I know the other 2. Is Mutiny the newer of the 3 there?
No, it was the first album.
Was it really? Okay. Yeah. I need to go back and listen to it then.
It was Mutiny, Death of Us, and then Burning at Both Ends.
Okay. Yeah.
But that music video, I remember like not really thinking it was that great, like when I originally saw it. But watching it earlier, I was like, okay, this is pretty legit.
How was the quality?
Oh, the quality was awful.
240p.
Yeah, just terrible.
Old school YouTube days. Yeah, I hate that, man. I hate going back and watching old music videos like that. And it's like, can we not like try to like, high definition them or something?
Dude, it would almost be easier to just like let you turn everything down, to fit it. Because think about even on like Yahoo Video Player, like the videos used to look so crisp.
Yeah. True. That's true. Nice one.
What did you listen to this week?
Well, besides these guys, I was a little inspired by their early to late 90s sound. And it kind of drove some music into my ears, in my head, and I kept thinking, I think I should go listen to a little Oh God, the Aftermath. Yeah, a little Norma Jean. I think I'm gonna listen to a little Norma Jean. Oh God, the Aftermath. Yeah, think that's what I'm going to do. So I did.
Surprise, surprise. Curtis is listening
Surprise,
to Norma
surprise.
Jean.
Ugh.
Guess what?
It's
I
a
also
staple, bro.
watched the video for Pneumonia Hawk like 3
Did you?
times.
I bet you did, man.
Are we just saying predictable things about ourselves?
No, I don't know. There's just kind of that era where, so like I listened to that and I listened to a little bit of, I've talked about them before. It's called, I think I'm saying the name right, Esocharis or Esocharis. That's the band that Corey Putman came from. He played
Oh.
guitar and did vocals in that band also. They were only around for like a really short time in like the late 90s, early 2000s. They're kind of in a similar style to like Norma Jean and almost kind of like sound wise musically to like Zayo. It's kind of chaotic. There's a lot of bands kind of at that time that kind of make me, and so I was kind of digging into that kind of vibe.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the one that was kind of way off guard, this was way earlier in the week, was I went to the OG Enter Shikari album. I think it's just
Ooh.
called Enter Shikari, actually. Is it just called Enter Shikari? Maybe it is. Can't remember. You know what I'm talking about, right? Or no. It's called Take to the Skies. Take to the Skies.
Okay.
Yeah. That's such a good album, dude. To me, there's no that's one of those ones where it's like there's no bad song on there. It's
Yeah.
just it hits you from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, they're solid.
But yeah.
What are you gonna want to do an episode on them at some point?
Sooner or later we'll need to. We'll have to give some UK love there because they're from Britain, England to be exact.
We could do a
Yeah.
UK invasion
A UK invasion. Who else is from
again.
the UK? We could do Gallows.
You said Gallows?
Yeah, Gallows. That's the UK band. I think they are. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Sooner or later, coming to a UK near you.
We could do Bring Me
Invasion.
the Horizon, but that would just be
Oh,
upsetting.
well, yeah. It'd be like the first 2 albums.
Yeah.
Or
But we'd
3.
have stories.
That's
we'd have
true.
stories for that episode.
I always think of when he got off stage and ran to the back door,
Just
and the crowd
ran.
just like mobbed over there, and just all those girls going, Ollie, Ollie, I love you. And he stops and he turns around and he goes, I know. And then he just runs off. It's like,
I know.
wow. Really, dude? Okay. Yeah. It's so weird. And I think I said this to you a while back. It's so weird to see like photos or even videos on like Twitter or YouTube now of them. I mean, they're playing like they'd be like playing like the BOK Center, like Paramore did. They're playing stadiums shows like that now. And so it's so weird to look at that band and be like, I saw them at the Crush Lounge in like a room that was like barely enough for like 20 people and a bar at the back, you know. It's crazy. But I think you're back on mute, by the way.
Yeah,
Before you get
tiny.
another word out.
Tiny place.
Tiny. A closet, a hole. I mean, a literal hole in the wall, man, when they were nobody. Nobody. We saw them before all you people even knew about them. Yeah.
I do want to say hadn't Suicide Season come out by then?
I don't think so. I think it was still just
Count Your Blessings.
yeah, I think it was still just Count Your Blessings. Maybe they were on the precipice of Suicide Season, maybe. But I
Is
don't
that the
think
name of the
Suicide
album?
Season
Count
had
Your
come out yet.
Blessings.
I don't think that's right either.
Is it Pray for Plagues?
No,
Those
those
are
are all
songs.
just song names. No,
Yeah, but
no, those
one
are
of
those are all
them
just song names.
Is the name of the album?
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you positive?
Yeah. Hold on.
You oh, it is Count Your Blessings.
Count Your Blessings. Okay.
2008.
Ah,
Wait, Suicide Season was 2008 as well?
no, that's not right.
Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry, 2006. Sorry, the print was too small. Count Your Blessings was 2006. Suicide Season was 2008. So yeah, Suicide Season hadn't come out yet because we saw them in like 07. I believe. Like that was the same year as Silverstein,
Mhm.
Comeback Kid,
Mhm.
and the old Cancerbacks, little Pneumonia Hawk. I wonder if they played Pneumonia Hawk. Be interesting to find out.
Right? Yeah, I don't remember.
Alrighty, enough chit chat, Josh. Let's get into this meat sandwich. Some thick meat.
Well, there's a
Uh,
part of this is thick meat. The rest of it's just goddamn bread.
well, you got to start with bread somewhere, Josh. You got to start with the bread. It's not a sandwich without the bread, right? We can agree with that, right?
This first layer
Right?
of bread might as well be an asshole. It's
What?
it is so terrible, Curtis.
Uh, oh man.
I
Okay.
tried to like tell myself these are demos. I tried to tell myself that they're just starting. But
You got to
top to
start somewhere.
bottom, it is just so awful. It
Yeah.
sounds like everything's recorded on like a tiny Fender practice amp, no pedals or anything.
Right.
It sounds like they maybe used a couple of mics in the whole thing, and it is all messed up. I realize it's just a demo, but then even I go to the lyrical side, and we talked about how on the nose everything is just through these first few albums. It's
Yeah.
almost like a gimmick band, you know?
I don't like, so the guy who ends up doing vocals on the first two demos I mean, that's it. He just does the two demos. And I think he does the two demos and the first split. Yeah, with Outcast. I believe he does those three. And then he's gone. Yeah. And then he's gone. And so then you get somebody else for the first two full length albums. And then he's gone. And then you get Dan.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not like, I was listening to those demos, dude, and I especially that first one. Because the sustained demos, I sent you that link that was onto their Bandcamp,
Yeah.
and those are like re-released, like remixed. So there's a little bit better, but like the author demos, which is the first demos that they did, I
Mm-hmm.
found on YouTube, and yeah, that's the god awful, terrible demo, sound. But my biggest problem was his vocal style. It was just like, what the heck is this? This is not Zayo, man. And I don't know, it was just really, really weird. And it made me wonder about, because they talked in, here we go again, Lesser Lights of Heaven DVD. At one point they talked about some of the influences from their early days, like this time in the demos. Um, being some like late 80s, early 90s, like Christian metal bands. And they show pictures of them. And it's like, what who are these guys, man? Like, I never heard any of these guys' names before, like band wise. And they all look like they all dress like Def Leppard, Motley Crue kind, but they're Christian. And so like I can just like envision like their vocal style kind of being what we hear off of author demos, where it's just like at times he's kind of a growly talking voice, and it's like what are we doing here? Get this guy out of here. Get this guy out of the band now, man. You need to fire yourself, bro. That's what you need to do. But anyway, I
Um,
digress.
there's only one band that I can really think of right off the top from around then who I feel like's kind of got some credit. Um, and it is Living Sacrifice. I don't know if you've ever listened to them.
No, but I know you're talking about. I haven't listened to them yet.
Yeah, they're pretty solid.
Mm,
They're like Zayo in a lot of ways.
right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's Dan is Zayo,
Yes.
you know,
Agreed.
like those vocals are what kind of took some subpar riffs and, really kind of made them special.
Agreed. Yep.
So I don't know, like a flip or a switch gets flipped
A flip of the
on
switch.
a switch gets flipped on where Blood and Fire bring rest.
Hmm.
This is kicking it up into something that they might as well be different bands.
Sorry, I'm looking at their background. I can just hear him screaming again.
Ah,
Oh,
Professor!
God, make it stop! Oh man. Okay, let's get into it. We've kind of beat around the bush here. Okay. Genre-wise, they are categorized under metalcore. We can agree with that. What do you think about this post-hardcore label?
Eh,
Yeah, I was a little
you
iffy on that. I
can.
was like, post-hardcore? Okay.
I see so
Yeah,
many labels though, dude, that
yes.
I'm just like, what
Yeah.
was there
That's
like
why
one riff or something that they
yeah,
based that off of?
that's why I want to ask you, and I kind of leave it kind of open to see what you think. Um, speaking of what you think, Josh, uh, okay, brand new listener comes up to you, Josh. He goes, "Hey, I've heard this band Zayo. Want to listen to him? What am I about to get into? Describe for me. Paint me a picture. Paint me a Bob Ross picture of what I'm about to get into with Zayo. Are there any happy trees, by the way? Or they're all like sad trees destroyed
The
by fire?
trees are on fire, I think.
They're on fire from that guy behind you.
Um, Zayo's a hard one
It's
to nail
difficult, man.
down, dude. I
Yeah.
think you just kind of you could recommend an album to somebody, but you gotta
Let's
just
put it this
listen
way.
to it. And
How about this one? You come back with several questions. You go, do you like endless member changes? Do you like it when bands break up about a million times and get back together just a few months later? Do you like a roller coaster ride of discography? Then this band's for you.
well, luckily, if somebody's just getting into them now, then they pretty much passed over most of that, you
But
know.
it's just so weird. I mean, just going back and listening to some of the stuff and then doing the history, like reading it too, is just like, good God, you people have some problems, man.
Mhm. It
Let me
sounds
ask you a question
exhausting.
real quick. We mentioned Dan. I'm guessing we both like Russ. I like Russ. I think he's a really great guitarist.
Mhm.
Um, I really like Scott Mellinger as a guitarist too. Dan coming in as the bassist later on is really good. What do you think about Jesse Smith, the drummer?
He's okay.
Yeah,
He's just kind of he's there.
he's
Um, he how long is he the drummer?
he's the drummer from the very beginning until his last album is when they re-record All Else Failed in 2003. So right before Funeral of God comes out.
Okay. I don't know. He does some pretty solid drum work on Blood and Fire.
Yo, for sure. I think he's a really good drummer. Watching I'm not hating on the guy, but
Mm-hmm.
watching the Lesser Lights of Heaven DVD.
Mm-hmm.
It's a drinking game now, people. Um I don't know. He just kind of comes off as a little strange.
I don't really remember
Kind
any of his
of
interviews right offhand,
just
but
remember, I always think of he's smoking a cigarette and he's drinking like Coors Light every once in a while, and so he's kind of kicked back and he's got the hair kind of in the eye a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and just every once in a while he's just kind of like he's about to smoke it. He just kind of it's like what are you doing? I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
Kind
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah. I remember.
just a little bit pretentious, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
I'm
he
just
is.
like this dude's different, and I don't know. But anyway, not hating on the guy. Like I said, I think he's a really good drummer, and he really did great work on their early stuff, especially where Blood and Fire. But yeah, anyway, let's dive on into it. Formed in 1993. Hey, that was when I was born.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, man. To think about like 1998 when Blood and Fire comes out. It's like, dang, dude, I was in kindergarten. These guys were it's weird, just so weird. Formed in 1993 in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Blue collar, woo! By friends Eric Reeder on vocals, Roy Gowdy on guitar, Mick Cox on bass, and Jesse Smith on drums. The band settled on the name Zayo, which was picked by vocalist Eric Reeder. Zayo is a Greek word that means alive or to have life. Do you know that, Josh? Did you know that? Or did I just blow your mind?
You just blew my mind.
Kaboom! Cool. The band called their sound, quote, Christian-centered hardcore. Yeah.
That's definitely true in the beginning.
For sure. As they sought to reach an audience that they felt had been pushed away from the organized church. Most of their early songs, which appeared on their first two full-length albums, contain explicit references to God and centered on the theme of the peace of God. Really? I didn't notice. Did you notice anything like that, Josh, at all? I mean, they felt like it was pretty subtle.
They're Christian. That's news to me.
What? Christian? Really? I'll have to go look at these lyrics.
Very subtle.
Very subtle. Hey, Frank, keep it subtle. Subtle.
Not subtle at all.
Not subtle. Is that how you came in? That's not subtle at all. Fred Keel from JesusFreakHideout.com. I love that URL. JesusFreakHideout.com. Wrote on the beginning of the band saying, quote, throughout the late 80s, the music industry witnessed the birth of a number of bands tapping into what has now become thrash metal. In the beginning, we were introduced to the first Christian thrash metal band called The Crucified. Afterwards, Vengeance, Rising, Living Sacrifice, and others followed in their footsteps. Then in February of 1993, 4 young believers decided to go a step further and create one of the most controversial and longest-running metal bands to come out of Christian music. Like many other bands at the time, the early Zayo struggled to find label support, but it wasn't until later on that their careers finally took off. Let's just dive right on into these first couple of demos and split EPs, Josh. You got the 1994 authored demos, which was self-released. It's got songs such as Mock, Increased, Your Plank, Hellfire, Nonconformist, Reversed, Childlike, It's Real, and Untitled. You also have 1990. Nice. You also have 1995's Sustained demos, which was also self-released. Songs on that album include Conflict, Deep, Rest, Sickness. Oh, that was for you. I didn't know if you're going to go terrible again.
Oh, all terrible.
Oh, okay. And then you also have 1995's First Split. We've got several splits that we're going to talk about, but 1995's the first one, The Tie That Binds EP, split EP between Zayo and Outkast from Steadfast Records. Songs on this split include Zayo's Flight, and then Outkast's 2 songs, What Have We Done? And Wasting Time. Also terrible?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes you gotta dig through the poop.
For me, it is completely unacceptable until we get up to All Else Failed.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree
before that, and I don't even feel bad about saying that because the Zayo that I know is Dan Zayo.
This is not the Zayo I know, man.
Yeah, and so I don't feel bad about saying these first few albums really suck.
No, I'm with you on that one, man. I'm with you. Vocalist Eric Reeder would be featured on the first 2 demo tapes and the split EP, like I said earlier, before leaving the band and being replaced by Sean Jonas on vocals. Does that name ring any bell to you at all, Josh?
Sean Jonas?
Yeah.
Is he the Jonas brother that's just like a lawyer or something?
No lawyer.
He's a used car salesman.
Hi, I'm Sean Jonas for Jonas and Brothers car dealership. Come on down. Yeah, we got wacky inflatable guys. Anyway, no. I mean, I didn't know if you would probably know him or not. I'll say this here in a little bit, but he's going to end up he's going to be on the first 2 full-length albums, and then he's going to leave, and eventually he starts a band called Symphony in Peril. Now, does that name
Okay, yeah.
sound familiar? Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you remember when we were in high school watching a classic YouTube video called Hardcore Drive-By?
Yes.
One of those songs from Symphony in Peril is featured in that video.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the one that goes dun 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 dun. You murder face to face. Okay, anyway. That's a good band. That's a good
Oh
band.
man. Dude,
Yeah.
those hardcore drive-bys were so great.
Yeah, they're so good, man. I watch them every once in a while.
Yeah.
Just for a good classic laugh.
We did one at
Uh,
Star World 20 one time.
did you guys? Oh, you guys did some?
Yeah.
What song did you use?
I don't even remember, dude.
Did you record it?
Maybe somebody did.
You buns.
I just remember we were all packed in my car.
Nice. Hey, do you guys you know any good CD stores around here? You know that play some music. Play some music. Dun 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 dun. Anyway,
I wish so bad we could just like
insert
insert one of those videos right now.
Right. Yeah, we'll probably have to watch that here soon. So yeah, Sean Jonas can be taken over on vocals for Eric Reeder, which brings us to 1995's All Else Failed from Steadfast Records. Are you looking up that video right now?
No.
Okay. Produced by Mick Porter, Barry Pointner, who also did work with Living Sacrifice, The Juliana Theory, Haste the Day, Dead Poetic, and Esocharis. And the band Zao also did work on this album. This album would be re-recorded in 2003 with a bunch of new members. We'll get to that later on in a different episode. And it was also remixed and remastered in 2018. The original, that is, was remixed and remastered. That's actually the only one that I could find. I couldn't find like the original. All Else Failed.
Okay.
So it was.
Oh, you couldn't find
yeah.
the original?
Yeah, I couldn't find the like ultra original, like not remixed, not remastered. You know what I'm saying? Because like I went on YouTube and like all the ones that were on there was like the remixed remastered version because they were like way better sounding.
I have the first one on Spotify, and then they also have the 2018 remaster.
Okay, I wondered if Spotify might, but yeah. Anyway, some songs on this album would be re-recorded for their sophomore album. We'll talk a little bit more when we get to that one. Stephen Palace of JesusFreakHideout.com
Whoa.
reviewed the album in 2000.
We're hiding out.
Hideout. He reviewed the album in 2011, saying, quote, the first era of Zao began as four ministry-minded kids making a splash for Christ, making a splash in the Christian hardcore scene with their spastic, punk and metal tinged brand of hardcore. Lyrically, Zao was probably more straightforward here than at any other point in the band's existence. Really? Couldn't tell. Uncompromising in their stance regarding the truth as well as their mission to a lost world. Though their first effort was naturally far from perfect, All Else Failed is a surprisingly entertaining glimpse into Zao's refreshingly fervent history. He continued on saying, quote, Jesse Smith's drumming is as cold-blooded as ever, truly providing the backbone of Zao's sound, while Gowdy and Cox give a performance that, while not earth-shattering by any stretch, is at least more thought through and creatively palatable than you might expect, especially if you've heard The Splinter, which is the next album. We'll talk about that. He also says in parentheses here on The Splinter, though I'm still trying to understand why the chorus effect on Cox's bass was necessary. Something he's got a beef with, apparently. The riffs may not be groundbreaking.
Who gives a shit?
The riffs may not be groundbreaking, but they're... Sorry. Okay, redo. The riffs may not be groundbreaking, but they're played with incomparable soul. Jonas's oft-praised bottomless diaphragm screaming is present in full force, providing much of the heart and soul of the record. Moreover, heart, I think, is really the driving force behind All Else Failed. It's the engine that makes it go. Vroom. The raw emotion bleeding through every track rivals Where Blood and Fire brings rest in its intensity and makes this musically somewhat subpar effort much more satisfying than it could have been without it. While this record certainly has drawbacks, they're really only symptoms of a young band trying to find its identity, Josh. Songs on this album include Resistance.
Try harder.
Huh?
I said try harder.
So basically, in summary here, Steven's telling the guys, try harder. Okay, just do better. Be better.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Songs on this album include Resistance, In Loving Kindness, Endure, Growing in Grace, which features Mick Porter of Branston, Foresight, PS 77, Exchange, In Times of Silence, A Simple Reminder, and the finale, All Else Failed. All right, Josh, what do you think? Freshman album debut, All Else Failed.
There's some okay guitar stuff going on. The only two songs that had some parts that kind of jumped out at me were Growing in Grace and PS 77. This is more what I'm expecting from like your first EP, you know?
Right.
Like the demo stuff was all garbage. Like if a band puts out something of this caliber for their first EP or their first album, then it's passable, you know?
Right.
Even the vocals here are pretty good.
Right.
It's not, we're not up to Zayo's full potential because we don't have Dan yet, but
right.
I don't know. Was there anything on the album that stood out to you?
It's just, I mean, I'm with Steven. It's like you can tell that, I mean, they're not terrible musically or anything, but you can tell they're a very young band. They're still trying to figure out what they're doing. They're still trying to figure out, exactly how to play these instruments really good. I mean, again, not that the music was bad. It was good. I love the intro on Resistance, straight out of the gate on the album. It's just like, that's pretty cool. I mean, they have something there. I'm not all like with the like in your face Jesus, lyrics. I mean, I get some of it, if that's what you are as, Sean Jonas. I mean, cool, be you, everything like that. But sometimes it gets a little overbearing. It's kind of like, okay, I get it, man. I get it. I get what you're saying, and everything. And I've seen some of the live stuff too from like way back in the day when he was their vocalist. And at this time, and then in even Splinter Shards, The Birth of Separation Time too. And yeah, they're very preachy on stage. But back to this album though, I like it. I mean, I didn't hate it. You can tell that they've got something there. And I do agree again with Steven when he says that Jesse Smith's drumming is the backbone of Zayo's sound, at least in the first part. I mean, I like the drummer that they have now too, but they've got something there. They're going. But I'm with you too, where the Zayo that I know is Dan, and so these first couple of albums are just kind of like, okay, they got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would listen to it again. I listened to it like 3 or 4 times, so that's positive, right? That's positive.
That's something.
That's something. You have anything else on All Else Failed, Josh?
No, I didn't start saving any tracks until Splinter Shards.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Is it?
I don't know. Is it good or bad?
Good.
Okay. Let's talk about 1996 real quick, just real quick, super quick.
Terrible.
1996.
Terrible.
1996 Treadwater EP, which is a split between Zayo and Through and Through from Steadfast Records. Songs on this split include Zayo's Repressed, which is going to be on Splinter Shards album, Splinter Shards. And Through and Through had the songs In the Midst of Trials and Resistance. Yeah, I didn't even like waste my time listening to this one because it's like the one Zayo song is like it's on Splinter Shards, so I've heard it. So I don't really need to listen to this. After numerous attempts to get the label Tooth and Nail to recognize the band's talents and following the band, wait a minute, hold on a second. What have I done here? So after several attempts to get the attention of one Tooth and Nail Records, the band would finally get to sign with them. For a while, they had been trying to get a hold of them, sending in some demos and different stuff like that. If they were sending in those first couple of demos, I don't blame Tooth and Nail for saying, yeah, no, we're good. But that's why they ended up signing with Steadfast Records for their first full-length album. They couldn't get on with Tooth and Nail. But finally, after the success from All Else Failed, their freshman debut album, Tooth and Nail finally decided to sign them to their label. The interesting thing that I found off of the Lesser Lights DVD was they talked about when they signed with Tooth and Nail for the first time for this, upcoming album. They made the comment of, we were very young, we were very dumb, we didn't know what we were doing. Somebody hands you a contract, you're not going to read it, and we didn't feel like paying for a lawyer to read it for us. We were just excited that we were getting this opportunity to do what we wanted to do, and so we just signed it. Well, apparently that contract was for like 5 albums. So it's like, what have we done, man? And we're going to see some of that repercussions later on in this next episode when they get to what is it? The self-titled and when they do the re-release of All Else Failed. We'll talk about it then. But yeah, when they sign on with Tooth and Nail, according to the band, it was a five album deal, which is not too smart. But,
yeah.
All right, let's talk about 1997's The Splinter Shards, The Birth of Separation from Tooth and Nail / Solid State Records. Produced by Drew Mazurek and the band. This is the last album for Sean Jonas on vocals and Mick Cox on bass. Several songs on this album were re-recorded that came over from the previous album. And I think the reason why we ended up getting that was because they wanted to go ahead and get something out really quick for the new label. And so they decided, hey, let's just go ahead and grab some of these songs that, off of our previous album that did really well, and we'll just re-record them with a better studio, better producer, and obviously a bigger label name behind you. Fred Keel from JesusFreakHideout.com wrote in his review of the album in 2008, saying, quote, "The first incarnation of Zayo was first and foremost an evangelical Christian band." I don't know where these people are getting this from. I cannot see that at all from these first 2 albums. I don't know where they're getting that stuff, man. I don't know. Just don't know. First and foremost, an evangelical Christian band created with the intentions of boldly, and I mean boldly, delivering the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Their lyrics contain a very bold Christian message, and the words "to particle" are close enough to be labeled as a worship song. The lyrics go as such: "I will lift you up, I will praise your awesome name for what it's worth and nothing less." Other great lyrics are included on "Endure," which tells how Christianity has survived for so long because it holds absolute truth. Lyrics on that song include "It has been proven, it shall remain. This faith has stood the test. It persists through conflict, through the revolts against its ways. Nothing is held true like this. Other tracks deal with life struggles and pointing the listener to Christ. One of the best qualities of the album includes Sean Jonas's long 15 to 20-second screaming vocals that appear throughout many of the songs, including Times of Separation and Resistance. Two words come to mind when I think of the music style of their early years. Quote, very weird. Keel goes on to say about the album, quote, listening to their Solid State Records debut, I felt like I was listening to a local independent band that was musically just not there yet. All the band members are talented, but the music tends to drastically slow down halfway through almost every song. The songs are below average and sound good enough for demo quality. Now, I kind of put in parentheses here with some asterisks in regards to that last little couple of sentences where he's talking about, he doesn't feel like he feels like, they sound like a local independent band and, it sounds good enough for demo quality, yada, yada, yada. Again, I kind of look at that as, he's looking at it in 2008. So think about how many more albums we've gone through with Zayo and what we're up to at that point. And so I'm kind of wondering if there's a little bit of bias there. You know what I mean? What?
Yeah.
Come again?
You said you wrote it in 2008?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's looking back on the album in 2008.
Okay.
Songs on this album include Times of Separation, Surrounds Me, Exchange, Particle, Repressed and Loving Kindness, Endure, The Children Cry for Help, Resistance, and Song 1. Interesting that you put Song 1 as your final song. Interesting. What do you think about the Splinter Shards, The Birth of Separation? What is this title? What does that even mean?
I don't know. It's a Coheed and Cambria type title.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Splinter Shards,
The Birth of Separation.
Birth of Separation, Star 6.
Jeez Louise.
At the end of the galaxy.
Here we go.
My beef with these two albums is that I feel like they can't figure out like who they are, Are we trying to do music that sounds like fucking Metallica? Are we trying to do music that sounds like a post-punk hardcore type thing? Am I doing vocals that could sometimes be confused with Pantera? Like I don't know, they're just kind of all over the place. There are
Bad Boys in Heaven.
By the time they get to this album, it reminds me in a lot of ways of like Cries of the Past or something.
Oh yeah, From Under Oath, yeah.
Okay. Or even kind of like Changing of Times. There's just like no clean vocals, or maybe more Cries of the Past because it's a little more raw.
Okay.
I saved Song 1, Times of Separation, and Repressed. Mostly for musical reasons.
Yeah.
One of them has a breakdown that just gets like slower and slower each time they play it.
Yeah.
So it's mostly musically for me because it doesn't hit for me vocally until we get Dan in there for Blood and Fire. And that's when it takes on this whole other thing,
Oh,
like in my opinion, that's when they become a completely different band.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, we're almost talking about two separate bands here.
Yeah.
From this album to the next one for sure. Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought about Sean Jonas's vocals in the first two albums, his style and everything.
I don't hate them, and he's definitely like the hardcore vocalist I want. I don't like the hardcore vocalist who has no ability,
Mm-hmm.
like, and they're out there. Like the guys that just like it's not even like a refined yell. It's just like this guy has a bad, loud talking voice. Um,
That's nice.
yeah, he's just a guy with something to say, and that's awesome. But let's get a guy with something to say who has some musical ability, maybe.
Right. Okay.
So, but he's
Yeah.
he's definitely the hardcore vocalist I would want. Like that's the style, you know.
A lot better than the first guy.
Awful,
Awful. Terrible.
terrible.
You should fire. I shouldn't even have to fire you. You should be able to fire yourself. Yeah. That's how bad you are. Yeah, I like All Else Failed better than Splinter Shards.
Okay.
But it's still good. I mean, again, I'm with you. Dan is Zayo, and we're about to. I mean, we're at like a 6 or 7 right now, dude. We're about to crank this thing into like another universe on this
By the
next
time we get
album.
to Funeral of God, you've
Oh
ripped the
my
knob off
gosh,
and smashed the amp.
good lord, man! I just, yeah,
Pinnacle. Pinnacle.
Pinnacle, and that was like a comeback album, basically.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my gosh, man. In due time, in due time.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't hate this album too. I listened to it several times, just like All Else Failed, and it's in my rotation, just like All Else Failed too. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. Mick Cox on bass would be replaced by Kevin Moran. For a short time after their sophomore album was released, the band would gain a second guitarist in Ron Gray for touring purposes. Now, after coming home from playing the Cornerstone 1997 festival, the current lineup would all decide to leave the band except drummer Jesse Smith. Like I said earlier, Sean Jonas, who did vocals in Zayo, would create the band later on in life. Symphony in Peril, reference Hardcore Drive-By. But you should go. I mean, if you haven't heard of Symphony in Peril, they only have 2 full-length albums, and I think they're one of those bands that are getting back together this year to play Furnace Fest. One of the like million bands that are doing that. Furnace Fest has become this thing that's like, if you're a band that is no longer around and you want to get back together, Furnace Fest is for you. Yeah, so I think they're going to be playing Furnace Fest this year. But yeah, they've got some good music, so go check them out. Rather than dissolve the band, drummer Jesse Smith started recruiting the era of Zayo, the new era of Zayo. Smith started with Brett Dieter, who played guitar in the Pennsylvania emo core band Pensive and the Juliana Theory. Dieter would suggest adding Dan. Is it Wayant? How do you say his last name?
I never know.
Wayand. Wayand. We'll just say Dan. Dan
W.
Dan W. and Russ Cogdale from the Christian hardcore band Seasons in the Field. It's funny because I think about this now in the Lesser Lights DVD. I don't know if you heard of that before. Have you heard of this DVD before, Josh?
Lesser Lights of Heaven?
I think this is the first time that I'm mentioning it ever to anybody. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Okay. I remember when you had that on physical copy. That was pretty cool.
I might still.
Do you really?
Maybe.
Nice. I might have to borrow that then. Because the version on YouTube is like it cuts off like part of the video. So you can't tell like who some of the people are and like where they're like what bands are in or what connection they have on there or whatever. Anyway. There's pictures and video of Dan and Russ when they were in Seasons in the Field, and 2 things stood out to me: how skinny Russ was back in the day, and his big, I mean, huge baggy jeans. Was hilarious. And then Dan he was always kind of a bigger guy. Probably not as big as he is now, but he was pretty well built. But he always he kind of had like slick back hair a little bit, and he always had his pants kind of tucked or his shirt tucked into his pants. And so always kind of funny to me to see that guy just like walking around like screaming with his pants, his shirt tucked into his pants.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two things stick out to me when I think of Seasons in the Field now.
Seasons in the field.
Seasons in the Field. To accommodate the new members, drummer Jesse Smith would drive hours, and I mean hours, to Greensburg, Pennsylvania to practice writing and record what some would call the band's most defining album, 1998's Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest, from Tooth and Nail and Solid State Records.
Now it's meat time.
There we go. Get the meat. No more crust. Leave those for the birds. Produced by Bruce Fitzhugh, who did vocals and guitar for the band Living Sacrifice. He has done work with Esocharis, Few Left Standing, Embodiment, The Showdown, and Further Seems Forever. And also Barry Poitner also did producing work as well. This is the only album for guitarist Brett Dieter, and both guitarist Dieter and Cogdell would contribute bass writing and recording, so they don't actually have a full-time bassist at this time. Fred Keel of JesusFreakHideout.com looked back on the album in 2008, stating, quote, "Many have proclaimed this album is the reason hardcore metal is what it is to this day. Bands such as Underoath, As I Lay Dying, Sinai Beach, and Killswitch Engage would not be where they are if it were not for Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest." Dan's screaming voice is dead on perfect on every song, and fans of Haste the Day will notice where Jimmy Ryan got his influence from. Russ and Brett offer much heavier guitar riffs that completely blow away what the original lineup created. As far as the Christian message is concerned, the spiritual side of the songs have been toned down a lot for this release. A few of the songs deal with the death of loved ones who were very close to Dan. The lyrics from "To Think of You is to Treasure an Absent Memory" were written as a memorial for his stepbrother's best friend, Robbie Spade, who at the time had committed suicide. Here's some lyrics from that song. "When you shut your eyes and fell asleep, dark clouds descended on the souls of the ones who held you close to their hearts. Finding guidance from the Lord of Lords appears throughout many of songs, including March, but Zao never refers to Jesus by name. Here's some more lyrics for that one. A single quiet voice and the breath of his words consumed the night and brought strength I have never felt on my own. He held me up until I could walk again and promised to stay by my side forever." Violet is a beautiful instrumental track recorded with the piano, and it closes up the album on a positive high note. Keel would go on to suggest fans who love some of today's metal, that is in 2008, such as Haste the Day, As I Lay Dying, and Underoath, need to do themselves a favor and pick up this album. Now, if you're a fan of the newer Underoath stuff, as in the last few albums, don't even worry about it.
Probably not.
You're garbage. Songs on this album include Lies of Serpents, A River of Tears. To Think of You is to Treasure an Absent Memory. A Fall Farewell. I woke up one morning and he was dead. Oh my God. You also have March, Ember, Ravage, Ritual, 15 Rama, For a Fair Desire, The Latter Rain, and the finisher Violet. When was the first time, Josh, you ever heard this album?
The first time I heard this album and Zao was definitely from Brandon Evans. So probably like 2006, maybe.
So this was the very first album you were introduced to Zao too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine was Funeral.
This one and Funeral, and then I kind of had to fill in after
The
that.
blanks.
And then
Yeah.
Fear, yeah.
Okay.
But those are the first
Nice.
ones.
What was do you remember what your first reaction was listening to this album?
I remember thinking it was brutal as hell.
Oh my God.
I thought it was
what
pretty
is
sick.
this?
The sound clip at the end of Lies of Serpents from The Shining.
Mm-hmm. It's so,
So
weird,
good.
man.
So good.
I'm like, what the heck? I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, what's happening to my headphones? What's wrong with my headphones, man?
Yeah, it sounds like a record like fucking up or something, you know?
Yeah. Nice. Mm, this is a good one, man. And vocally, dude, God, there's so many high points vocally. The way he comes in on Lies, not the whispers, but the actual like scream. Oh my God. So raw, dude. It's so raw. It's so in your face. So good. Oh my gosh.
It's
And
so
now
brutal. It's a hard
it's
one to replicate.
oh gosh, yes, it's so hard. I don't know how he does it, dude. I don't know how he's got his voice now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
How he hasn't tore up his throat through all these years. I
I
don't.
know. He must have a technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always
Um,
one that I could never really replicate.
right. Mine was always kind of gurgly, kind of like his, but I didn't have the range like his, you know.
Yeah,
But
he's very broad.
yeah, the way he comes in at the very beginning of Lies of Serpents with the scream, and then there's it's not the first time that they like, how do I say this? Um, where's the lyrics? Um, let's see. Tell me a little bit about this album, Josh, while I find these
Um,
lyrics.
I mean, this is definitely Funeral of God is my favorite album, but this one's it's right there with it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, the sound, like the I say sound clips, but only one of them is a sound clip. The other ones are like their own clips that they, made.
The actually the I don't know what the Fall Farewell deal is. I'm guessing that's something that they made maybe. The deal at the beginning of 15 Rama is actually from a movie. I think it's called Prophecy.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
from a
okay.
movie. But it does sound like something that they made though.
And then of
Um,
course, like from The Shining.
yes, yeah, and then The Shining. Okay, the line. Okay, so they of course he comes in with the first screen. He says, your eyes search for me, blah blah blah. And then they comes to turning a child into an enemy, turning open arms into closed fist, and they kind of go into the dun 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 dun. And then he comes back in with that gnarly, like high pitched scream of like I could see the reflection in the tears. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, man. I'm a sucker for screams like that. Duh. So good, man. So good. And that kind of goes back to like why, like in our Silverstein episode, when I talked about his vocals on Shane Toll's vocals on When Broken is Easily Fixed are some of my favorite vocals because they're just so raw and it's just like, it just feels like you just don't care. I'm just going to scream as gnarly and as like chaotic as I can,
Yeah.
and just like throw all my cares, just throwing all my cares in the world, man. I don't give a crap if this rips my vocal cords.
Even
He's
live,
doing
dude.
him for my pleasure, man.
Even live, like when the in the DVD at
Mm-hmm.
Glass House,
Mm-hmm.
like his vocals are still really
Oh,
good there.
so man, it's so good, so
Um,
good.
yeah, I don't know how I don't know how he does it and how he's been able to do it this long, but
Yeah, which is funny too because in the DVD, I think it was
dude,
Brett, the
that's
guitarist.
25 years. That's 25 years of doing that to yourself.
I know, right? Yeah, yep. Well, and then not even that. I mean, he played guitar and did backing vocals, I think, in Seasons of the Field. Or no, he did backing vocals for some band. I don't think it was Seasons in the Field. Um, but he played guitar too. And Brett talked about Brett Dieter, the guitarist on this album, talked about um how his vocals, he really found himself when they got to Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest, because they all knew each other before then. Um, but he said he just remembers like when he was in this other band, he was just kind of doing backup screams or whatever. His his voice just really wasn't there. And then when they were recording his vocals on "Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest," he said he was kind of outside the studio. Brett was, and he was doing something. And I think he said Jesse came running into the room where he was at and said, you gotta come listen to this. You gotta come listen to this line." And it was the first line of The Lies of Serpents when he comes in with that scream. It was just like, oh my God, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
So
Now we've got some walking around money.
yeah. I mean, it's like, dude, I think we just hit some pay dirt, bro. Yeah. And just, I love the way too, where it transitions from Lies of Serpents and Rivers of Tears right into that kind of like soft intro into To Think of You.
Mhm.
And then Fall Farewell's intro is so sick too. Where it just comes in heavy with that guitar real quick. And then I love March, the way that comes in, a nice little beat, and then it just like eventually kind of slows down to like a dying crawl and then picks back up again real quick or whatever.
Yeah.
This is one that I'm with you. I listened to this about 20 million times in preparation for this episode, dude. It's such a good album.
They're really like with this new lineup, they're striking gold. And I feel
Yes.
like they're all just building off of each other. And
Mhm.
you get an album like this
Yes.
where everybody around each other is just making each other better and playing off of each other.
Agreed. Yep.
And you go from, the last album being like a 6 maybe to this being like a 10.
Yeah.
So
10. I was gonna say like 15, bro.
I want to go to, what's
Like
the
a
scale
zillion.
mean if we just, go that crazy? I mean, I'm going to give
Yeah, no,
Funeral
I
of
got
God
you.
since it's my favorite, like an 11 or 12, but
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
You just answered my question. Okay. I was gonna ask you if this was your favorite album.
it's right there with Funeral
So
of
close.
God,
I
but
mean,
I
Raise
gotta go with
Within.
Funeral of God.
Dude, is it just me? Or is the bass on Funeral for God so sick? Especially songs like Lesser Lights, and The Rising End. Dude, that I get so hyped on the beginning of Rising End when he comes in with that, man.
Yeah.
No. That's Last Revelation. I'm talking about Rising End when it comes in with
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
and then just comes in with that like that bass line. Boom, doom, 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 oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh my God.
Yeah. That album.
Don't get near me because I might punch you in the face, people.
That album goes hard as hell.
Good Lord, man. Ooh, what a comeback album. Hold on, give me a second here. I'm gonna wipe the sweat from my brow. Good God. Is it hot in here? Yeah, this is a good album. I'm with you too. I haven't really decided yet which one's my favorite, but Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest and Funeral of God they are right there next to each other. So yeah, definitely check this one out. Do you think this is a good entry point? I would think it probably is. I mean, if you're really into that kind of in your face, kind of like Christian with some hardcore vibes, definitely go check out, the first 2 full length albums. But if you want the real Zayo, I think this is definitely where you got to start, right? No?
I almost feel like it might be a little too unpolished for people.
Okay.
That's why
all right.
I feel like my
all right.
entry point for them is Funeral of God, because
Okay.
that's the most polished version of Zayo that you're gonna see. I feel like.
Okay. Fair. It's fair. I gotta take my own opinion out of it because you know me, I like my rawness in my music, man. I love it. Alrighty, as much as I hate to move on from this one, but we gotta move on. Gotta close this one out. While touring in support of their new album with no bass player, that's right, you don't need no bass player. The band would set stages ablaze. What was it? What were we talking about? Which band was that? We were talking about AFI, punk rock bands. You don't need a bassist. You don't need one. Yeah.
Nah, you
Wasn't
don't
that what
need
it
one.
was? Yeah, you don't need
Yeah,
one.
sure. Why not?
Yeah. The band would set stages ablaze with their raw emotion and lead vocalist Dan W's personal storytelling, which detailed the hardships that informed their songs. With a rockabilly look, rockabilly from the band's members, coupled with Smith's oddly engaging habit of setting up his drums facing away from the audience. Nice, very nice, like that. Their live reputation grew larger and larger in the underground with each passing show. That's going to bring us to 1998's Training for Utopia / Zayo split EP from Tooth and Nail and Solid State Records. Songs on this split include Training for Utopia's Modus Operandi, Zayo's Skin Like Winter, which would show up on their next full-length album. We'll talk about that in the next episode. You have Training for Utopia's Police John, Police Red, and Zayo's Walk On By, Walk On Me. There was two things I was going to say about this album, but I can't remember what the first one is. The second thing I was going to say, though, was that line there's a bass line at the beginning of Walk On By, Walk On Me. It makes me think of Primus, some of the things that he would do. And then I was led to think about Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 in those days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are some good days there. I can't remember what the other thing I was going to say, though. But I really like this split, dude. I've heard of Training for Utopia before, but I'd never listened to them. I think I'm going to check them out. I know they've got like a really short history. Here we go again. This is another one of those bands that's reuniting for Furnace Fest this year. After
I thought they sucked.
You didn't like them?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was interested. I did a little bit of research, and I mean, it sounds like I'm a little skeptical to hear what else they've got. I liked the two songs that they have on here on this split personally, but I'm a little skeptical about what the rest of their discography is going to sound like. They're very short discography, but I'm going to check it out for sure. What did you think of the two Zayo songs, though?
I like the two Zayo songs.
How about that clap in Skin Like Winter?
I'm all about a clap.
I'm all about a clap, man. Yeah, I like that. I thought that was pretty cool. Because it felt like it was just like opposite of like what they would do. It's like, oh, look, Zayo's clapping. Nice. I like that. Like that.
How to Build a Sandcastle ends with claps. The good version.
The good version. The terrible teaser.
The what could have been version.
Yeah, just release the song, people. Seriously.
All the times I saw them live, I don't remember like them ever playing it.
1-0. Yeah, I remember you saying that in that episode. Well, I think I said too, it's probably one of those things where it's like because I think I had said in the history, they talked about, they got to a point where they refused to play it because everybody wanted to hear it all the time. So it's kind of like the local band Hospice back in the day was like, yeah, we're not playing Retribution anymore, people. We're moving on.
It's retired.
So don't ask for it. Or like Paramore, we're not playing Misery Business anymore. And then 2 days later, we're gonna play it.
We'll play it though.
What's that? Is that the intro for Misery Business? I hear.
I think the deal with that though, wasn't it that like because it was the song was about her and another girl, and she like calls her a whore in it, and then it's the reason she doesn't like to sing anymore is because. Yeah, but she didn't even say it in like when we saw them. Like she just doesn't say it.
What, a whore?
Yeah.
What did she say? She just didn't say anything?
I think she said, "I'm not going to say it," like during that part.
No, that's weird.
Or something like that. I don't really remember, but
it's
I
a spoken word
part.
I'm not going to say it. Okay, so I'm not going to say it.
But that
burn the duster. I'm not going to burn the duster.
I'm not going to burn the duster. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I bet that with like once nothing, they finally just got to the point where like, look, guys, we're not gonna play it anymore, okay? We're sick and tired of it.
I mean, it's a
So
great
let's move
encore
on.
song.
But that's the thing about it though. Let it build over the years. Let it build. Then all of a sudden it explodes once you finally do it. Yeah.
You know, it's an oddly amazing
Uh,
encore song,
what's that?
and I've seen them do it a couple times. In Mirror, they'll come back out and play "Drug Dealer Friend," and I don't know if you know the lyrics to "Drug Dealer Friend," but I would encourage you to look those up
I think we've
because
talked about this before, yeah.
imagine a room full of people all screaming those lyrics at the top of their lungs.
Yeah,
you're
I
gonna
think
have
we've
to
talked
check
about those
those
before.
out.
Speaking of live shows, did you ever have the chance to see Zayo live?
Oh hell no.
Oh man,
Yeah, I don't think they ever came anywhere close to here when they were
back in the day at
yeah
least, yeah.
in their prime.
Would you go see if they came to town right now? Would you go see them?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I mean, you got it, right?
I was about to say it's one of those bands to me. It's like it's on the short list. It's like, yeah, you gotta go.
Yeah, it's
You
like you
gotta
never
go,
have,
bro.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my thing, you know. Like, yeah, I might miss a Norma Jean show that comes to town, but I saw them like back in the
You've seen them
day.
like three or four
I saw
times though,
them with
haven't
the
you?
Chariot, you know.
Yeah, there's no topping that one, dude.
So I don't know.
Wasn't that the well, no, I think we talked before. That was like the fiance lineup, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be fiance Redeemer lineup.
Yep,
It's a great lineup there. It's a great lineup.
it's a great show.
Following the split recording, guitarist Brett Dieter decided to focus his time and energy to his other band, the Juliana Theory. It was suggested at this time by drummer Jesse Smith that the band should take a brief hiatus. Shocker. Get ready for this, people, because there's a lot of coming and going over the next couple episodes, man. So we're going to leave it with a current lineup during the hiatus of Dan W. on vocals, Russ Cogdell on guitar, and Jesse Smith on drums. Thoughts, Josh, on the first installment of Zayo?
Half of it's crap. No, I mean the first block is not good, man. Like the first
It's rough.
split, the
It's very rough.
demos. Then we get to a passable period of those next two albums. I'm blanking on the first one.
All else failed.
Yeah,
Are you talking
All
about
Else Failed
okay, yeah.
and Splinter Shards.
Yeah, Splinter Shards.
Number
Number 4, Go Galaxy Go. Star Riser.
Star Riser. Volume 3.
Volume 3, Book 4.
Um,
Epilogue 12.
yeah, those two albums are it's a better period, you know. I don't know if you can even say we're building to something because Jesse's the only one who's in this throughout.
Well, but at least you're kind of building a little bit of a foundation off of the backbone of his drums.
Yeah.
You know, it may not be what it's going to be on, Blood and Fire, but he's working towards something. At least he is, even though everybody else leaves.
Yeah.
Everybody else leaves me in the end.
Yeah. It's just different, when it's like mostly the same guys, even if it's like one person changes, if it's mostly the same group of guys, you can see this, like we're building to something here.
Right.
But yeah, it sounds like not like they're building to something, but just like their sound is changing a lot, kind of trying out different things with each new wave of people that comes in and
right.
But then we finally get there. We finally get there with Blood and Fire at the end of this. So.
Strike gold, man. We strike gold. Yes. Cool.
It's gold, Dan. Gold.
It's gold, Dan. Gold. All righty. Here we go with the outro.
I'm gonna make
That's
you
cold,
a star.
Jerry.
I got a new song for you, Dan. It's right in your Q zone.
It's called Lies of Serpents, River of Tears. I thought of that myself. Alrighty, make sure to follow us on Twitter at @IsSurvivedByPro for news and the latest episode postings, not just on this show, people, but there are other shows as well. There are more shows. You can't get enough of us. There's plenty of other shows to listen to, man. I know you're out there, people. Yeah. There's the History of the Corps After Hours podcast, where I sit down with my good friend and avid listener of this very podcast right here, Eric, to discuss the bands that me and Josh have already talked about, kind of getting a listener's perspective of these bands. Some he's heard, some he's never heard of. So, yeah. There's also the Red Right Hand podcast, which has covered all 6 seasons and then some of the Peaky Blinders. You also have the Throne of the Dragon podcast, which so far has covered season 1 of House of the Dragon, soon to be season 2. Last I heard, I think they're still saying middle of 2024. I think is when season 2 is supposed to come out. So, yeah, but that's okay because we're currently talking some Targaryens. Yeah, and all things Targaryens, and the interweavings of Targaryens, if you catch my drift. Also, while you're on Twitter, make sure to follow my co-host at Joshua Lynn Gary. Look, people, I know it's not called Twitter anymore. They're calling it X, but I'm not calling it X because that sounds stupid.
Be Twitter forever.
It's Twitter. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on whatever podcast service you're using. And if you want to listen to us, see our smiling faces, head over to our YouTube page. I don't go to the dentist just for myself, people. But for you people too.
It's for you.
It's for you. Just head on over to our YouTube page. Just search Is Survived By Productions. And that'll have every episode from all of our shows. Subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up the video. All right. Until the next episode, we're going to talk about, I believe, the next 3 full-length albums, along with some splits.
Yay.
We'll see you.